To get premium trading and investing tips, support on Patreon. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the 5th video of Trading 101. Today we're talking about selling in the hype. I already explained this in the previous video where I was talking about the terms, but basically to recap, the hype is in two factors. So the first factor is the safe factor, which I like to call it. The safe factor is that you know a specific player will get some hype because there's an event coming up, everybody's expecting it. Before that SBC or something drops, people are gonna buy the cards in expectation of these cards being needed in the SBC, and basically that's it when you should sell. Probably that's like a time 24 hours before the event is released is the best time to usually sell those cards. I remember, like, for example, when Player of the Month were released on Friday, Wednesday evenings were really good times to sell, probably because Thursdays we got the rewards and there was more supply on the market. So if you went for lower end cards, it was usually better to get selling these cards around Wednesday evening, just because to avoid that extra supply, which will bring them a bit down. It won't bring them much down, but still better to sell in the hype before a specific event, before promo packs are out, or before the rewards are out, which supply the market. So the safe factor actually is to sell then. Now the risk factor, the second stage where you can sell in the hype is in the expectation of something. Like when we know that the SBC drops, if it needs the specific card, if let's say I used an example on Royce in the last video, like if it needs a Royce card in there and the SBC really requires it, we'll see that card jump way more than it was in the hype before the event drop. But also be careful about it, like, because if the card is not needed, the card will get panic sold, and if it gets panic sold, that's the time you should buy. Never sell when the card gets panic sold. For example, we saw this year a really good example was Aubameyang, which actually he didn't work well in the hype. He was quite stable, and before the event he dropped a bit, but then EA for the SBC, for the Player of the Month, required an Aubameyang gold card, and the Aubameyang gold card flew up in the first 10 minutes. Like, if you were having an Aubameyang gold card, those 10 minutes were the time spent to sell. So when something is announced, the second factor to sell your cards in the hype, the second hype stage, which is a bit more riskier, is to sell in the first 10 minutes of that release, because people start buying, and that's panic buying. They go into the panic buying mode because they think it's gonna get extinct, or it's gonna have such demand, it's gonna be needed, that the card will just rise. And what actually happens is usually it goes back down after that one. Usually we see it in the evening, the cards go back down when the demand is not as much. But then, of course, as the SBC progresses, let's say a Player of the Month is out for a specific period of time, in the next week it can rebound slightly. If we're talking about the more expensive cards, maybe it's not that good to jump back in the evening and buy them. But if we're talking about the 83, 84 rated cards, let's say they need I don't know, like Chelsea 84 rated cards for a specific SBC, if they drop to a specific value, if they drop a lot, let's say 20-30%, if you jump back in, it's good to buy, because in my opinion the next 3 days they rise back up as they usually have. But then, of course, after that period of time, they're gonna go slowly back down as the demand for the SBC usually goes up. Specifically talking about the Player of the Month, but any other SBCs, hardly they push something to extinct. So the second hype window is in that first 10 minutes when something is released. The first one is the one that you guys need to really, in my opinion, be more wary about. That's the hype period before something is released, and that's when you always can make coins. You don't make much coins, you make like, I don't know, 20-30% at most out of it, in my opinion, but you still make coins. Like, of course, yeah, when Aubameyang was needed, he doubled in price and all of that, GG if you bought him and all, but that's the risk factor you have to take into account. If you're gonna risk it, most of the time you're gonna make a loss, and at the end of the year, I don't think it will be as profitable as if you would be playing it safe and selling in the first scenario. So guys, let me know in the comments if you have any questions regarding this, and yeah, of course, I'm gonna release a new video in the next one.